You're watching GCTV, Community Access Cable Channel 15 in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
So let's get started. So it is 5:03 p.m. and today is Monday, August 19th, 2019. This is a special meeting of the Greenfield School Committee in Greenfield, Massachusetts. We are currently located at the Central Office Meeting Room at 195 Federal Street, Suite 100. Can you help with the roll call, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Cameron Ward.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Susan Hollins.
Here.
Glenn Johnson.
Here.
Myself, Adrienne Nunez.
I'm here.
And Susan Ekstrom is absent.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And she may be phoning in for public session, possibly for executive session. Great. Thanks everybody, thanks for coming. We have a limited amount of time today. Most folks, I believe, are planning on being here until about 7 p.m. I know one individual said they could stay till 6:30. Susan Ekstrom, of course, is away. So we are going to do the best that we can to get through the agenda quickly. We will need to table a couple of items and focus on our priorities for today. If we get into a need for some additional deliberation, just keep in mind that we can table and either schedule a special meeting or just wait until September. Okay, I do want to start. There are some snacks here in case anybody's hungry. I know I scheduled this meeting at a funny hour, so brought a couple snacks for us just in case. So you'll see we're going to start with public comment. How many folks are here from the public to comment? I see 3 hands, 4 hands, 5 hands. Okay, cool. And everyone was able to give their information to Susan Farber. Is that right, Susan? Do you have a list?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you have a list with an order, we can start there.
Okay, I might be.
If not, then that's fine. We can just start.
I might be calling people who are part of the Health Education Task Force, but we'll start at the list. Is Joanna?
Yeah.
You're going to be speaking?
Hi.
Great. So you have 3 minutes to speak in public comment.
I'll be fast. So, Joanna Rizzabini, 60 Pierce Street.
I'm here tonight to ask you to support the 3 R's curriculum as proposed by the Health Education Task Force. The curriculum is evidence-based, free, and adaptable to a wide variety of ages. It is a curriculum that the middle school desperately needs. I'm a parent of a Greenfield Middle School student and a nurse midwife that specializes in reproductive and sexual health care. I've worked in Greenfield for 14 years. For the past few years, I've seen a dramatic increase in the rates of sexually transmitted infections in our community, and these infections are affecting our youth. Recent data from the state support this trend. So from 2010 to 2017, there's been a 38% increase in the rates of chlamydia. From 2013 to 2017, there's been a 56% increase in syphilis. From 2010 to 2017, there's been a 267% increase in gonorrhea. While high-quality sex education includes prevention of pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, it's so much more than that. It gives young people the tools they need to make healthy decisions about their own bodies and their own lives. In my practice, I see so many young people struggling with how to navigate their relationships. They don't know what to do if a partner is manipulative or controlling. It's important that every child learns about consent and body autonomy, as well as how to identify healthy and unhealthy relationships. At the National Sexual Health Conference last month, I heard 2 statistics regarding our youth that validated my clinical experience. 1/3 of teens lacked the confidence to turn down dates. 1/4 of teens weren't confident that they could break up when they were ready to end a relationship. What we're doing now isn't working, and our children deserve better. We have a responsibility to provide them with high-quality, age-appropriate, accurate information, and the 3 R's curriculum is a great place to start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Browning, are you speaking as part of the task force? Okay, Alyssa?
Yeah, I don't know. Should I speak as public comment or as part of the task force? I'm really here as
Either one.
I'm really here as part of the task force.
Okay.
I'm not like a parent or anything. So.
Okay. So Angela? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Mass. I am a parent of a 6th grade student and a student going into 8th grade at the high school. And I'm here to talk about the need, or is there still a need for MSA? I think when MSA was created, it certainly held a valid piece of what we needed in our district, and it brought students in. But right now it is in the same building, and students are able to still accelerate. And what's happening, in my experience as a parent, is I'm seeing it is creating this us versus them segregation. And that is unhealthy for our students. And it's really sad to me when I'm walking with my own child and we'll see someone they've known since kindergarten, and that child will say hi to me, and my child doesn't say hi to that student, and I'll say, how come you didn't say hi? She said, because they go to MSA. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And that is really sad to me. There is a way for us to still accelerate students as appropriate without needing to call it MSA. My own child, who's going into 8th grade, was still accelerated into math and the GMS path, and will still be going into Algebra 1 as an 8th grader at the high school. So I hope that you will consider, as you're moving forward, the thoughtfulness of, is it still appropriate to segregate students within the same building and the harm that it's causing to our students? Thank you.
Can I add a here to the public comment?
Lynn Dole?
I'm here for a later
Something
agenda item as well.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
So anyone else besides, oh, okay, sorry. Skip right over you.
Watch your step here.
Thank
you.
Andrew Vernon, 17 Sunset Square. I'm a frequent flyer here on occasion. So I am the father of a middle school student and Newton Elementary School student. So a couple of things. I've been before this group a couple times. So I'll simply be a bookmark in that discussion. I mentioned a desire for timely and effective communication, most especially from the middle school. That's been a point of a challenge and a point of frustration, is the effective and timely communications that we receive. So I'll say that again. A few concerns I have going into this year relative to communication. So one is, for this school, I know there'll likely be an announcement here about some good things happening, which is wonderful news. I have some concerns not knowing if my daughter will have a nurse in the middle school this year. So that's one concern. Second concern I have is it became more than just school knowledge, but kind of social knowledge over the past year of the retention of teachers for the middle school. That became very obvious at some Christmas gatherings that I went to this past year in public where that was being talked about. And I don't know the staffing levels for teachers specifically for the 7th grade this year. I know that specifically this past year that was a challenge in the middle school. And that's become more of the social fabric within the community of Greenfield, especially in the last year. And my last comment is a topic that has been brought to this group a couple of times. Again, in the middle school, it is my understanding, and this policy was supposed to be overturned this year, is my understanding, that students have to wait one at a time to use the bathroom. And my daughter was impacted by that for the past 2 years, being a middle school student. So I'm here to ask and plead with this group to make that 2 minutes in between classes more effective so that students do not have to wait in line when there are stalls and other bathroom resources available. Because that's unfortunate to hear from my daughter that she has to wait in line and often be late for class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment?
I would put my name in there, but can I jump in?
Sure.
My name is Caitlin von Schmidt. I live at 15 Congress. And I kind of just want to back up actually what a couple of people said. I want to start with Joanna Rizzardini. I think that sex ed in the schools, the idea to me that I heard that sex ed doesn't start till 8th or 9th grade, which is mind-boggling to me. In this day and age, kids could be having sex by that time. Sure hope mine isn't, but some of them could be, and certainly they could be involved in some kind of sexual activity. And as Joanna pointed out, it's not just sex. It's also how you deal with relationships. I know kids in 6th grade, they're already dating. So I think it's really important that that starts getting introduced in the schools in a way. I mean, I think in some way you could start in elementary school, but certainly in middle school, I think it's crazy to me that that doesn't already exist at the middle school level. And I really, really hope that you'll be listening to the task force's findings. Also, what Angela said, this is something that I've been talking about to everyone I can since we came to the middle school and even before. My son is in the GMS track. He has friends that are in the MSA track. When it was in 2 different schools, it made a certain amount of sense to keep those things separate, but under the same roof. I see it as nothing but deleterious. I don't see why, as Angela said, that they can have accelerated offerings for all kids. I don't like the separation. I do think it fosters an us and them kind of attitude. I think the mere words middle school versus academy is an elitist problem. Academy being the smart kids and the other kids go to the middle school, even though they're all kids in the same school. So I really, really would love to see that division wiped out and that we find other ways to let kids take advanced classes, because I don't think kids should have to make a choice. I don't even know how 18-year-olds pick a major the first year of college, so I don't know why we're asking them to make this kind of choice already at the middle school level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I throw my hat in?
Yeah, absolutely. If you walk this way, be careful. My cord is in the way. Thank you.
So I'm Jenny Vernon, 17 Sunset Square. I have a child in the middle school. I also have a child in Newton School. I'm a very involved parent. I am at the school on a regular basis. I'm a PTO mom. The thing I'd like to speak about today is actually last year when someone retired in the front office. We did a hiring freeze apparently and only had one person in the front office. As I said, I'm an involved mother. I call, I come in, I see things. And it was stressful watching what was going on. The front office, the front desk, that is the person who keeps people out, who lets people in, that is the person who answers the phone. And it was difficult to watch only one person have that job. Taking care of all of my students, she did a wonderful job, she did a phenomenal job. But this is my child. This is hours and hours a day, and I want more than one person there in order to be able to let people in with the video camera, in order to answer the phone, in order to get people to different numbers, and in order to be a frontline person. And of course, when I bring up that, nursing, please, if we can get a nurse in there. I think that's important as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Okay, so seeing none, we will move on with our business. Just so folks know, it is 5:16 p.m. In your packet, we have our minutes from July 10th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes of July 2019.
Moved by Member Hollins. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Martin. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from July 10th, 2019?
Aye.
Aye. I believe that was unanimous. Bill, you were yes, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And, okay. So at this point, we're at reports. My report is very brief. It's just a simple reminder that there is a charting the course class on September 7th. It's a Saturday. This is the required course for school committee members offered by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. It will be held in Northampton at the Collaborative for Educational Services. Please do sign up for this workshop. Open meeting law will also be covered in that workshop. So if you're available, please sign up. I did send out a link about maybe a week ago. As a reminder, if you need help finding that link, let me know. I can get it to you. I want us to be filled in on the business of the subcommittees. I also want to have plenty of time for those that have come to share with us, both for the Health Education Task Force as well as the Greenfield Middle School, so items 1 and 2. I am going to request at this time that we move items 1 and 2 ahead of the rest of the reports. I'll move that. I move that we moved items 1 and 2 ahead of the superintendent, active subcommittee, and school committee representative reports.
Seconded.
Moved by me, seconded by Member Johnson. Yes, Member Hollins?
I'm concerned that we haven't had any budget information for a long time, and I think that should be close to the top of our agenda these months.
Thank you, Member Hollins. Any other deliberation on the motion, which is to move items 1 and 2 ahead of the committee reports? Okay, all those in favor of moving items 1 and 2 ahead of the committee reports, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Is that an opposed, Member Hollins?
No.
That's an aye? Okay, so unanimous. So we will jump into item number 1. This is the Superintendent Health Education Task Force. It's my understanding that there's at least a handful of people that are here to talk about the Health Education Task Force. And I did make a little notation in our timed agenda that if the committee feels that they need to spend additional time than we have available today on this topic, I would just recommend a table. And at this point, I'll yield to the superintendent and go right ahead.
Great, so in your packet, you have a very lengthy executive summary
And I want to thank member Karen, who served on this committee, and about 16 or 17 other members of the parent community, local professionals, teachers in our community, who put a lot of work together in a very short period of time. This task force was formed from the clear need amongst our youth for a comprehensive health education program. As you've heard in public comment tonight, that is a lot more than what people think of narrowly as sex education. We do a lot in our schools to offer healthy choices and information to students, but we need to do more, and what we put together is a proposal that addresses that. At our last scheduled school committee meeting, we had a parent representative, one of the professionals, Alyssa, and several other members. Unfortunately, they weren't all able to be here tonight with the rescheduled meeting. I will ask Alyssa to come forward if she wants to comment at all. But you have quite a lot of information here in your packet. What we're recommending is that the middle school adopt the 3 R's curriculum. It's rights, respect, and responsibility. This curriculum is free. It is available online. If families are interested in checking it out, you can look at it right now. It's available so that families can begin to get a sense of what's there. It includes a parent communication aspect. And what it does is really give students the tools that they need to be healthy and make their own positive choices. And in that way, it complements a lot of the work that we're already doing in our schools. Alyssa, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, so I was happy to join this task force. I work at the Community Health Center here in town, and I manage all of their sexual and reproductive health programming. And my background includes a lot of outreach to both parents and young people around these topics. And I came tonight to really be just a resource if anybody had any basic questions. I'm not an expert in the 3 R's, although my vote on the task force was thrown behind that particular curriculum, although we reviewed a bunch, for all the reasons that Jordana just outlined. And for the parent communication component, one thing that I've found sort of in the past few years is just the joy of helping parents communicate with their young people, and especially after reading a lot of research where something like 70% of parents think that they have communicated their values around relationships and healthy dating and sexuality and boundaries to their young person, and only 30% of those same young people report that their parent has communicated with them. So there's something amiss, and when I learned that, I really got excited about connecting those dots. And so we discussed the parent education or parent sort of support aspect of this curriculum a lot in the task force. And yeah, I think it's strong on both parts. But if anybody has any questions for me.
I want to add 2 other things. Our policy around health education and health curriculum includes a component for parents to opt out, and that would remain with this. So parents have the right to choose if this is a curriculum. If we operate in the schools, parents still receive notification and have a right to decide if they want their student to participate or not. And there is a digital component which is really designed to help with that family communication. And we really view this as the school's attempt to provide information but not to replace the parent. And we really think parent communication is so important around this. So we did recommend with the 3 R's curriculum free short videos that are also available online, and parent education and a sort of rollout for parents to provide them the information they need. The other thing that the committee recommended was a specific curriculum for students with disabilities. Maggie Rice from Whole Children and Whole Selves was at the last meeting but was unable to attend tonight. And we know that the information shows us that many children with disabilities never receive this information, and that it can be really critical to keeping them safe and keeping them healthy throughout their lives. So along with the 3 R's, we are recommending a specific curriculum which does have a cost and comes with specialized training for students that have significant needs and need a modified curriculum that specifically addresses those needs. And that would be the whole CELS curriculum, and that's a local curriculum based out of Hadley, Massachusetts, and actually came recommended with the endorsement of one of our school committee members.
Thank you, Superintendent. I saw Member Ward.
Is there, this is pretty much for the superintendent, is there opposition to this?
Like, you mean through the process
What,
of going
are
through?
you
Did
looking for
hear?
us to
I'm looking for a
approve
vote
or
to.
I make a motion to
Thank you,
support
Ken.
the superintendent's health education task force as
Recommended by the.
recommended by the task force that you put together. And that would be the end of the motion, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer. If you've got the staff and facilities to do this, knock it out. Yep.
I just want to clarify with Susan Farber, do we have the language on the motion?
You have moved
This is a no-brainer.
You have moved to support the recommendations of the Superintendent's Health Education Task Force. Does that sound good?
That's good, yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Sorry, I momentarily forgot your last name.
That's all
Karen,
right.
Member Karen. I see Member Hollins.
Yes, could you tell us what teacher would be teaching this and how often or where it fits in the schedule? Is it once a week or, 5 sessions a quarter or what? Just so we know.
So the proposal as it stands now is at the middle school level for the health teachers to be teaching this. At the high school, the schedule changes the delivery a little bit, so it may be the health teacher in combination with the phys ed teacher, for example. So our goal is to provide some specialized training to health teachers to be the primary individuals with some expertise in this area to deliver the curriculum.
Is it all year long curriculum?
It's not, it is not.
It's a
There are
core.
components throughout.
Depending on the grade level, there are different amounts of lessons. So as the students age, there are more lessons.
That's how we did it in the 80s.
Just trying to see how it will fit in.
Woodcock was my health teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Member Johnson.
First of all, I'd really like to thank the superintendent and the task force for the tremendous amount of work you put into this. It's really valuable to us to have so much volunteer work going into choosing a curriculum like this or to putting one forward. And I had the privilege to work with Joanna at Tapestry Health. I have enormous respect for her as a health provider and educator, so it's a big vote of support when she offers her support for this curriculum. I am just curious whether the opt-out option or the opt-out ability is state mandated, or how does that factor? Is that something we're choosing as a community, or is that something that's kind of required by the state that parents be able to opt their students out of health education?
That provision, as far as I'm aware, is because of our current policy around that, and that's why we've included that component.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am, Ryan.
Just a couple of observations. So I was surprised at the percentages brought on earlier about these sexually transmitted diseases in the area. Is that Greenfield?
That's statewide.
Statewide?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have some Greenfield percentages?
I don't have them off the top of my head. Am I allowed to speak crosstalk?
I can also.
Okay.
But I can tell you anecdotally, I've seen more surplus in the past 2 years than I have in the past 15.
We often can't get town level data
Yeah.
from the state because particularly in our rural areas, low counts get suppressed for anonymity. So, if you have 5 people in a community and then we report that there were 5 positive tests in that community, it could be easily identifiable as to what 5 individuals those were. So unfortunately at our local level, but I do have county level data that I'd be happy to share. I don't have it off the top of my head.
So I'm curious as to, CHC's been here for a while. And if we've had this STD mini epidemic over a period of time? What has CHC been doing?
Well, it's actually a national epidemic. So you may have heard about sort of rising STI or STD rates on a national level. What CHC is doing is they hired me to make a program. It'll be 1 year next month that I've been there. And that was mainly to help integrate these services into their primary care offerings, because the health center really felt like that's where it belongs, in primary care. It's part of people's health. It's a healthful thing to talk about and be educated on. But previous to CHC, I was at Tapestry for about 7 years. And so that's sort of why they brought me on there. And it's a national epidemic, and we aren't 100% sure why. One thing we think is that the AIDS crisis is further and further away in people's memories, and so adults feel more and more sort of cavalier around their safer sex practices. It's not as scary as it was when many of us were younger. And sort of using HIV and AIDS as like a cudgel to scare people doesn't really work that well anymore. Another thing that we've noticed is, although teen and adolescent pregnancy rates have plummeted overall nationally, they have increased, they've held fast in certain areas that sort of traditionally have high pregnancy rates when we look at Springfield or Holyoke, but they also hold pretty steady in rural areas. And another thing we think is that might be associated with more and more funds going towards abstinence-only education, which actually just sort of insulates young people from any knowledge and then leads them to taking riskier behaviors. Whereas when there's a full range of information provided, they tend to delay their start of any sexual activity, have better communication with their family members and trusted adults, and have better communications with their partners. And that was in a Journal of American Medicine study. They compiled a bunch of studies in 2016, sort of getting all of this data.
So I guess I'm having a little problem. Are we talking adults and young adults would be 18 and older?
We're talking all ages in these statistics. They're not parsed out by age.
They're not.
But I do have statewide statistics parsed out by age. And you would see in those statistics that, again, I'd be happy to pass along, the highest rates of new chlamydia infection in particular is amongst 15 to about 26 years old. It's a little different if you're looking at sort of assigned male at birth versus assigned female at birth. We have it broken down by those genders. We don't have it broken down amongst trans folks. Again, low numbers suppress for anonymity. But those are the highest rates.
Thank you. You mentioned 70% think the values have been transferred from the parents to the child.
Parents think that.
Right, and the child thinks that only 30% has been transferred.
30% of young people report that their parent or caring adult has talked to them about any of their sexual health or values around dating.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so health education is not just sex education.
Correct,
There's
yes.
quite a bit more to health than sex.
A whole lot.
So I'm wondering, do you expect this program to have a saturation rate of 100% so that everything's taught is going to be absorbed? Or is it going to be 30%, the same as the parents, or are you somewhere?
I think it'll be a little high. My hope is that it'll be a little higher. No, I don't expect it to be 100% because I've met 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I was one.
This is school, I would guess it's gonna go down. So we're gonna teach it more.
I would hope that with strong facilitation from school and, enough time, and then the school, based on, everything we discussed in the task force, the school's effort to outreach to parents. And those two things together can sort of help cut through what is being taught now, which is sort of through music and Disney and TV and internet and stuff like that, those messages are all a lot louder than any teacher or any parent on their own. And so our goal is to have communications that can sort of cut through that and get science and facts out, and then also values, family values.
So many programs have an opt-in or opt-out, and this program has been chosen to opt out, which means everyone is in
Yep,
by doing
unless you're
nothing.
out.
So how are we going to measure the education to the parents to advise them to have an option to in or not?
We'll send out parent notification letters and say, this is this is the time frame that your child in a particular grade will receive this instruction. And if families wish for their student not to participate, then they can let us know and we'll provide an alternate activity in the health curriculum.
Why was it chosen to opt out instead of opt in?
It's in accordance with our current policy
Our current policy.
on health education in the Greenfield School Committee.
Member Karen?
I
Did you have one more?
No, yes.
Okay.
So I heard that there was a disability component to this education. What have we been doing in the past? I know we haven't had health education for all the time that I've been here, and apparently it started recently. Are we utilizing the RNs in this project? Or have we decided to, you mentioned health and phys ed teachers, but do we still have nurses in the school?
Yes, so I'm looking around the table to see, there's a flyer that was passed out that specifically addresses, I don't know if you all have access to it, if not, I can see. But there was a flyer that was passed out regarding the specific curriculum for special education. Our school physician, Dr. Schott, was an advisor on this task force. Our school nurse leader was an advisor on this task force and very instrumental. And of course, the nurses are points of contact. And in fact, because we've not had a comprehensive health curriculum, a lot of time the nurse is trying to catch a student up sort of on the spot during a health visit, or provide a lot of information in a way that's not necessarily the most effective or as early as they might need it. So the nurses have been involved and heavily supported this curriculum. Good job.
So just one last question. Do we have in our curriculum at all any science, anatomy, physiology, biology? Do we have any sciences preparing high school students for their bodies and everyone else's body?
This curriculum will address that.
But we have
In the middle school?
There's a wide range of topics that you just named, so I'm not sure that I can address all of them in one answer, but we're feeling that the particular topics around anatomy, reproductive health, developing bodies, changing bodies during adolescence is not adequately covered right now. So this would include that, but is not limited to that.
Thank you.
Okay, I see member Karen first, and then you two.
I was on the task force, and I just want to quickly say I was ongoingly impressed with our community's efforts to give all of our students and all of our community members the best education possible when it comes to this. We will never get 100% saturation. That's not I would love that it was a possibility, but the more we talk about these things with our students and our community members, the more the children will ask us questions. The more sure of ourselves we seem, the more confident we seem, the more nothing rattles us, the more they will come to us. And children often are more comfortable asking their teachers. These teachers are getting questions. We heard that time and time again, that they were unsure of how to exactly answer because our curriculum was not clear. That is what we're doing. We're making children aware they can come to any of us at any time and ask a question. Because the only way to know is to ask.
Just quickly, when we get to budget and we get to library materials, I want to encourage enough money that we can get updated materials on these topics in our libraries. And I don't know who will do that because we don't have elementary and middle school libraries. Librarians.
That's not accurate. That's completely inaccurate.
Okay, so I'll just go back to saying I'd like to make sure we have updated reference materials for children and teachers on these topics.
Thank you, Member Hollins. I saw Member Ward and I saw Member Johnson.
I'll defer.
Member Johnson.
I was just wondering if we have prevention needs assessment data that, whether that asks about unprotected sex and if we have data there at all to look at.
We do. We have a number of different survey measures. We have information at the school level. We have the youth risk assessment. We have a lot of information about the region. And I can say, you know, in broad terms, that I think the trends that you see here support trends nationally, and that we see their need here in our area.
I feel like I had another question. I had a migraine yesterday. I'm kind of recovering, so let's see if I can recover it.
All right, I think Cam's going to call the question.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you very quickly. I started to say it at our last meeting. I know that a lot of effort has gone into this. I am really proud of the work that our community has done here. Thank you all very much. I am in full support of implementing the new 2 curriculums, and I am really glad to be a part of a group that's helping to get this going. It's so important. That was your purpose, right?
Yep.
Any further? He's calling it.
Calling it.
It's a statement, it's very brief. I did want to just mention, it's in your packet for members of the community that are watching. We also had a religious advisor on the committee, and it was important to make sure that we were understanding and representing a lot of different perspectives about this. And there was one particular study we looked at that said that most parents, a high number of parents, believe that this is a priority. It cuts across socioeconomic, political boundaries, and there's a real effort to bring a lot of different perspectives. So this recommendation really represents, I think, a broad group of people.
Okay, motion on the table is to support the recommendations of the Health Education Task Force. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I don't think so. I think that was unanimous. Okay, thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
So the next item is an update on the Greenfield Middle School. I'll yield to the superintendent and watch yourself here.
Okay, so tonight is a bit, we're in Greenfield Middle School, yes?
Greenfield Middle School,
So
yeah.
you have in your packet the turnaround plan, and for members that have spent any time working with this plan, I wanted to bring this information to you because it represents the tremendous hard work of the parents and the staff that have been working on this, as well as the community members that have been involved in the process. At the middle school, 16 or so staff members were on the TAP teams, TAP standing for Turnaround Plan, and have been working on this all through last school year. It's now at the point that we have submitted the plan in the form you see it to the state, and we're awaiting feedback. So there may be some additional revisions, but we wanted the committee to have it at this point. As we head into the school year, this plan is informing quite a lot, and it's helping us articulate how we can drive the maximum achievement for every student in Greenfield Middle School. We looked at school culture, we looked at achievement, we looked at the schedules, we looked at all number of things in different groups of teachers, and the teacher voice and engagement in this was just terrific. You heard from the folks at the state when they came earlier, but we've seen so much improvement even since that time in the planning that's taken place. I do want to take it a minute to announce that we have selected a new principal at Greenfield Middle School, and I'd like to introduce Lynn Dole. So information went out to the committee on Friday, and Lynn was actually in the building at Greenfield Middle School today. An email and text went out to all Greenfield Middle School parents. You should have seen it. And an announcement went out to all staff today. So Lynn brings a wealth of experience as an experienced administrator and a certified licensed principal. And she has a background that will lend itself to leading this turnaround work and really continuing to strengthen the community of Greenfield Middle School. So welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I recognize a number of faces around the room, and it's really exciting to be part of joining this community. I will say my first day here has been wonderful. I was able to join in one of the turnaround plan team meetings this morning. And just to reiterate what Superintendent Harper was saying, that the energy and the thoughtfulness that's gone into developing this plan and that continues to go into thinking about how do we build on this momentum is really exciting. It's exciting in this time of the summer to be in a school building and have so many educators eagerly preparing for the school year. The energy has been just really wonderful. So I'm honored to be joining your school community and look forward to working with everybody and meeting the students. That's coming soon and I can't wait. Great.
So our full presentation is not in front of you tonight because, again, with the rescheduling, the full TAP team, but they will plan to be at the September meeting. I think if there are questions from the committee, we'd like to be able to bring those back to fully address them. I do want to get out some information to families that may be watching or to the committee as far as how this will affect the start of the school year. On your table, you have 2 draft letters that the administration of GMS have put together. And this is an example of just communication that I think there's already a focus on timely communication and outreach to families. And so these are letters that are going out with Lynn being here on her first day. Here's a letter ready to go home. And I do want to address briefly the idea of science and math and the importance of it to the success of students at the school. So on the second page, you see some of the ways that we're really building on this idea of STEM and actually expanding math and science offerings as part of the schedule for the next year. So in the last several weeks, hiring a principal has obviously been a top priority of mine, but at the same time, I've been meeting with the associate principal, Mike Browning, who's here with us tonight. All kinds of teachers have been working on this over the summer, and we have spent hours and hours at a time figuring out how can the schedule support all of our core classes, add science, add math to the day. And in the 5th grade, families can expect that students will have science every single day for all students. And in all grades, we're expanding math and science offerings so that there's additional time. And expanding that STEM component has been a real important theme coming out of the TAP team so that students are ready and really have opportunities for these kind of STEM. In addition, we're adding some unified arts classes where students can take as an elective an additional STEM class. We're exploring different kinds of options for that, and we expect to expand them throughout the year. But we've built in ways that if a student is interested in math, science, coding, robotics, meteorology, that there are ways that they can opt in to additional enrichment opportunities. So we've provided a little bit of information for you, but we want you to know that those kinds of changes are things that you can look for more information coming from the school. And I will say the school is really the appropriate level to be getting that information, but we do want to make the community aware of the commitment to the science and math, as well as some changes in how it might be delivered so that students can really get this idea of enrichment or remediation and expanding access to math and science. And some other exciting changes in the schedule include every student will start and end the day with advisory every day to give them a sense of connectedness, to help with some of the organizational pieces. If you have a middle school child, you might be familiar with the struggle of getting homework out of the backpack. So we're thinking that starting and ending the day with the same homeroom instructor or team of teachers may really help address that connectedness and also some of just the kind of calming and organizing. So, lots of good things to come. We hope families will join us for the meet and greet, come hear more about what's happening at the middle school, meet Lynn. We have 2 strong returning APs. We have a lot of great teachers. I will address some of the questions about staffing because it came up several times. We did have a middle school nurse vacancy. It just came up late in the summer. We immediately posted it, I think the same day. Today, a new nurse has accepted the position and will be starting in a couple of weeks. There may be a sub for a few days at the beginning until she starts on board, but we have somebody coming in we're really excited about. She's an RN and she's coming in to continue that work. We think that school nurses are incredibly important. We're also looking, because of this focus on science, we are looking to fill the science position some people have asked about. There was an earlier effort to cut this position due to budgetary restraints. We can staff the building without the position, but we don't think that it really meets the goals of the turnaround plan or the effectiveness because you end up having an ELA teacher teaching teaching a science or a math teacher teaching a science, as opposed to somebody who's really strong in their content teaching a science class. So the proposal for the science teacher is a science teacher covering 6th and 7th grade science classes. And this lets math teachers teach extra math, or English teachers teach extra English that differentiates to the needs of the students that they have. So these are just a few examples of the kind of thoughtful work that's going on and lining up schedules and staffing. And I think at this point, if there are a few vacancies left, they're just pending confirmation from people. Basically, we've put our priority on fully staffing the buildings. So I think with the last couple weeks of flurry of hiring activity that happens sometimes in the summer, we're in good shape heading into the fall.
All right, and just so folks know, my understanding is that we're not looking for a vote of the committee at this time related to the turnaround plan because it's not in its final form. So this agenda item is essentially informational. I do want to say thank you very much to those that have been involved with the turnaround process. I said this before, it's clear that there's a lot of work that has already gone into this, and there's more to come. And I see this commitment to our schools and our middle school kids as something to be very proud of. I'm very excited about the work that's going on. And thank you to everyone that's been involved. And I'm looking forward to a continued conversation about it. I think I saw Mayor Martin.
Yes. Help me with this. We've been doing ELT for maybe 11, 12 years at close to $1 million a year. And those students have moved from the elementary schools to the middle school to the high school. And our scores have decreased over that period of time. And that's what brought around the turnaround plan, is that we're in the bottom 7% in the state. So the question is, where is the enhancement happening in the ELT that would impact higher grades where the students eventually go and are tested? And two, what type of score are we looking for? Everyone hates to keep score, but that's how you determine whether you need a turnaround plan or not. So how are we going to measure the score at 1 year, 2 year, 3 year intervals?
To answer your first question first, we've also served school lunch during the period of time that scores have increased or decreased. I mean, you don't then draw a line and say, well, serving school lunch must have affected our scores. I think what you see from the expanded learning time is that students consistently report that the unified arts offerings, which are available because of the expanded learning time, and from parents, is one of the most compelling and engaging parts of our school day. But in particular, in our academic schedule, we have more time for instruction in reading and math right now because of that. So in our turnaround plan, as it's laid out and the committee has, we're delving more into instructional time, more rigorous instruction, because we have that 90 minutes of time a day. So I can tell you that schools around the state that don't have this time, and they're in turnaround, they're clamoring to expand the day, because when are you going to find the time to teach additional reading or math?
I thought our ELT time was scattered throughout the curriculum during the day, so that we didn't really have 90 minutes. At the end of the day, we added time intervals during the day.
Well, 90 minutes at the beginning, the middle, or the end is still 90 minutes. So what that gets us is a period of time that teachers have a prep period, a period of time that teachers have a collaboration period. Those are both times that students are choosing the unified arts offering, but also 4 core classes in science, social studies, reading, and math, plus differentiated instruction so they can get support or enrichment in addition to those. So it's really a very rich schedule, and I think parents will be really pleased with the upcoming schedule because it helps students. We did a few things like trying to put core classes earlier in the day when students are really ripe for learning, as opposed to later in the day where a longer day, they may not be feeling as fresh. And I think some of the ways that we've addressed that are geared towards maximizing not just the time, but really the outcomes. And I think those are good points that we've tried to address in this plan.
So I find that we have a high percentage of non-proficient students as identified by Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Why has that not improved over the past few years anyways? And do we have this coming up, improvement in math and English, planned and measured outcomes so that we know whatever curriculum is set is having an impact on student learning?
One of the things we know is that turnover has a high cost, and it makes it really hard to sustain initiatives and achievement. And this year, in particular with the budget cycle and the discussions, we saw good people leave. and we saw them leave for higher paying jobs in other districts. And it affects the relationships that they build with kids, and it affects our scores. And teachers tell us that they need to focus on the classroom and not whether or not they have a job. I think this year in particular, it hit us hard. We still have some really good people with us, and we're really glad that we do. And we have some great new people coming in. But we know that there are chronic stresses on schools, and that is one of them. In addition, we need to provide good professional development to teachers. We need to be really clear. We need a strong curriculum director in here. We interviewed somebody terrific today, and we're trying to set the school up to succeed. We have great teachers. They're working hard. We have great kids. We have a great community, and we need to pull it all together, and that's what
Yeah,
we're
I'll
trying to
save
do.
my time for further direct questioning. Thank you.
Okay, I think I saw Member Ward,
Yeah.
then I saw Member Karen, and then I saw Member
So what I
Collins.
wanted to get into first was the EELT program. I think that at some point you're gonna find a group of parents come in here and ask for that thing just to go away. My feeling is, over the last 4 years of being on the school committee, I've had more parents come to me and say that this school day is too long for their kids than come to me and say, thank God we have this ELT. So at some point, I think that the community, from what I've been receiving, the mayor brought up the ELT. I don't know if it works or it doesn't. But I don't think our community, I don't think there's I don't know, but I do know that a lot of parents have approached me and said that it's too much for their kids. You mentioned the grades, the scores, and the budget. And I just want to say, in my 4 years, we spent more money every year. And the grades aren't, the scores aren't there. So I know the teachers want to know that they have jobs, and I get that, but there's more to that. That's it.
Member Karen.
I understand the concern that we're not doing everything we can, but I don't think you can say, well, we have all this ELT time and our grade scores aren't going up, so it must not be worth it. It's not working, we're not doing our job right. But I think you need to take into account that we have more students with trauma, we have more ELL students, we have more students in DCF custody, we have more students in low-income housing. That is the way our trend has gone, and unfortunately, those students aren't getting everything they need. So we are working as hard as we can to give them everything we need, but that is going to change our scores. You can't just say, oh, we've had ELT, it's not working because the scores are going down. That's not even a little bit accurate. It's not even close to accurate. That's like saying, well, my grocery bill went up, but I still didn't feed everybody. Well, yeah, sometimes that's how it works.
You agree your costs go up, too.
Our costs go up.
I know.
Yep, I see Member Hollins. I'm trying to keep us on track here. Sounds like there's a lot
Yeah, we're
more
going on
conversation
track.
that we're interested in having. It's almost 6 p.m., very close, 2 minutes shy. So I see Member Hollins.
I wanted to ask a question, I had a comment. This is a terrific amount of work, really. It's small print, single space, and I appreciate the work that our middle school needs it. But I want to ask, inside this large document, are there staffing commitments? Like we will hire another this or another that. Are there any staffing commitments, or is there anything that will influence our budget specifically that we should know about?
So the plan didn't commit any resources, but I think as an example, what I've been talking about tonight is if you want to prioritize additional instruction, longer instruction in ELA and math, the way you do that is by freeing up people to teach ELA and math. And the way you do that is you hire somebody just to teach science so the ELA and math teachers can teach ELA and math. So there's no commitment in here because it's that's a school committee responsibility and this is not that document. But there are clear recommendations and we know what it would take to turn our school around and those are recommended here.
So I don't have a position one way or the other. I just want to know when we say this is terrific, inside here, are there 3 or 4 new positions that we need?
No.
Okay. And the other thing I want to say is we have about 300 parents that choose to go somewhere else. And we're a bigger community than other communities in Franklin County, so we have more children. And I think those numbers have come down, which is a credit to the superintendent. But there was comment earlier that there shouldn't be choices in our district. And if you eliminate any choices in our district, which is why they created innovation schools in the state, if parents don't have a choice here, they'll have a choice somewhere else. So you have to think about that when you're saying we shouldn't have this, we shouldn't have that. Because the reason people leave is they want a different choice. So we have an empty school. And it's just something to consider because a lot of our resources that we need for our students are going to other communities because people want a choice that's different than our one middle school or our, it's just something to consider. Those two things go together and in the end it influences our budget. That's it.
Principal Dole, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Something tells me we might see you again for a robust conversation about the middle school. I'll remind the committee and the public that about 2 years ago, the committee did take on a very public review of extended learning time grant that is implemented both at the middle school building as well as Newton School. Important to remember that. And we do take in approximately $800,000, I believe, annually to support both of those buildings. The outcome of that review was in support of ELT continuing. And with that, I will just say that thank you all for bringing up great topics. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of discussion to have in the future. And thank you, Principal Dole, for visiting this evening. Welcome to our school, and we are here to support you. We wish you the best. I think we can move on. Does that sound good? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. So at this point, we had...
You're welcome to stay, but if anybody's here just for the item, please don't feel that you have to stay.
Yeah,
we won't be offended. You have to stay.
Thank you.
You hang in there. Come on.
Watch your step. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Welcome, otherwise people would.
I have to
Over here. Thank you. Okay. So everybody, it's 6:02. Is Cam still with us?
Yeah, he's just walking somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you. I told my
Thank
son
you.
we'll see what happens.
Okay.
He left all his stuff.
So
Just candy.
I want to get a quick show of hands of who might be able to stay later than 7.
I can stay until we're done, but I'm not executive session. I can't be in.
You cannot be in the Unit C conversation. We actually have several other items to
Okay,
discuss in
that's fine. I just
executive
don't want to
session.
accidentally leave us quorumless.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Next question before moving on is I had asked the group to hold September 9th as a potential special meeting date. Has everybody got that? That's like the Monday before our regular meeting. It seems like we may need to use that date because we do have a significant amount of material to cover, especially in executive session. So at this time we are up to looking at the committee reports and superintendent report, etc. Do we want to take that on, or do you have anything? Yeah, do you want to?
I do. I
kind
have
of quickly run through.
Can I ask a question about the special meetings? You sent out a schedule of like, I think the second Monday through December. Are those to hold in case we need
Third
them?
Monday.
Okay. Are those to hold in case we need them, or are they to hold for how many?
It's to hold in case we need them. It's, I felt like we needed to kind of have something set in stone to make sure that we were holding our dates.
And you're also holding the 16th. So the 9th and the 16th are both Mondays.
That may be true. I'd have to go back and look. I just recall.
Let the record show I was absent when they were
Yeah,
talking
the
about
third.
this.
Yeah, the 16th.
Listening now. Cut it out.
The 16th would be the third Monday. So yeah. Yeah.
And the 9th, the time would be?
The 9th, the time would be sometime in the evening, so it would be after 5 p.m. Okay, so I will yield to the superintendent to quickly give us maybe a condensed report.
Sure.
And we'll move on from there.
Yeah, those are great.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't gonna get anybody else.
Those are from the farm.
They're great. Anybody want to?
Thank you, Adrian, for the snacks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome. I tried for cheese, but I didn't quite make it happen. I'm ready.
Okay, in your packet, there are some materials. I won't go through all of them. Our upcoming pigskin preview is in here. We're always working on sort of how we promote athletics and make sure that that stays important. You have the social media and what's happening. Our enrollment has continued to climb over the summer. We're up over 1,800 students as we sit here today. And we have continue to see enrollments coming in. That's taking into consideration that there are a number of families that move to other states, other places throughout the year. So we've had a high number of transition over the summer with particular families, but overall our enrollment continues to climb and we are up over 1,800. At Newton School, that is so significant that in kindergarten we've had to open a 4th section of kindergarten. They don't really have a large room even for that, so we've opened a smaller kindergarten based on the space available. Again, that wasn't anticipated because it's based on a larger than usual enrollment and a large incoming class, even higher than we predicted previously. I do want to let you know that at Greenfield High School, we did recently have an opening in the associate principal position. And the high school principal would have been here tonight, but she's working with GCC on some of the collaboration. And so she asked me to announce that John Cavallo, who's an experienced building principal, will be joining us as an associate principal at Greenfield High School. So we'll have a full team to start the year there. And it was important that we have a male that can continue to work with all the students in the building, but to make sure that we have a full team to start the year as well. I think that's all I will comment on besides what's in the packet. You have some of the financial information. I think we'll talk about that more later. If people have questions, let me know.
Nice.
That's great. Member Karen, did you want to give any info about subcommittees?
Housing program is still working hard, getting it done, working forward. I think on the next full committee meeting, we may see some stuff for first and second reading again. HSF, everything else is covered here, so we don't need to report on it.
Okay, great. Representative?
Yeah, the Planning and Construction Committee actually completed a complete report of everything they had done for the whole year, what their role is, what they accomplished. I think it's the first annual report of any planning and construction committee. I don't have copies, but I think the chairperson will give copies. There were questions all year, what are you doing, why are you doing this? So I think it's about a 10-page report on what are the goals, what do they do, what are the recommendations, how they've been involved in planning and construction in the whole city of Greenfield, every public building. So that's available. They did meet, went over the report last month, and they're meeting tomorrow. And tomorrow's agenda is actually a site visit to the library, just looking at some issues around costs but there's a complete report for everyone who's interested.
Okay, great. So like if I email the clerk, I can probably get a copy of it.
I think Jean Wall has copies the chair wants to give you.
Okay. Super. Any questions for Susan? Okay. Great, so we will move right along. Yes, Member Collins.
I'd like to say that I think it's really unwise not to have a budget, a finance and budget standing
So let's,
committee.
there is an agenda item here.
Is there?
Yeah.
Because you were talking about committees.
So we're trying to move us along as quickly as possible so that we can get into that information.
It's on the agenda?
Number 5.
Okay, my comment is strictly about standing committee.
Okay. So in your packet, in the timed agenda, I outline a suggested timeline for superintendent evaluation. I'm looking for a vote of endorsement for the superintendent evaluation timeline. This puts us having the final evaluation on October 9th. That's our regular meeting in October. And then sort of going backwards, we would have all supporting documents out to the committee by September 27th. The committee will fill out their individual evaluations and provide them to the chairperson by October 3rd, and the evaluations will get compiled by the end of the day on the 4th. It's like a pretty tight timeline. But I think that last year we had a little bit of a longer timeline, and I don't know that it necessarily benefited us. So I think it's, yeah. I see Member Karen.
I move to support the suggested timeline.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Hollins. Superintendent, do you want to comment a little bit about superintendent evaluation timeline?
No, these changes are fine with me. As always, you know, it's a busy time of year. I'm happy to move forward with this timeline as suggested. It's fine with me.
Okay. Mayor Martin and then Member Hollins.
I understand Jesse's dumping this superintendent evaluation.
It's my understanding that there is some kind of
Right.
editing
So,
happening to the
Do we want to
process.
continue in this process, or do we want to get caught up to date as to what's going on, what's the plan is?
It's my understanding that they're looking at revising it and providing, it's always sort of a tricky area, and it's an area that school committees often have a challenge with. I think they're providing some, I haven't heard that they're scrapping it entirely, so
Have
maybe
you received correspondence about that, by chance?
Just what we all get, the Jesse newsletter.
It's fine with me if you decide to scrap it, Mayor Martin.
And it's not one school district having a problem trying to figure out this evaluate it.
Yeah.
It's everyone.
Uh-huh.
And the ones that are done quickly are just 2 pieces of paper and they're passed around and everyone signs it. So the really honest evaluation isn't occurring, and it's just a matter of shuffling paper. So I think we put a real effort into it for years in trying to follow the guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And it is difficult. So I wouldn't like to, plus I'm a little short. You know, I have about 134 days left.
Oh, okay. I was like, aren't you like
But-
5'8"? JK.
So the idea that we would put a lot of effort into the next 3 or 4 months doing something, but this is going to change, you know, January 1st or somewhere. So I just think we need information about it.
Okay. Member Hollins.
I was just going to say, I would be supportive of scrapping it and publish nationally, saying I think it's a big waste of time because it's a political position. If everybody decided they wanted a superintendent to go, they would say in the room, we'd like you to go, and if they want him to stay, we'd say we'd like you to stay. So you set goals. That's my experience in my lifetime. It's not worth all of that time. But
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to support this timeline. That doesn't mean that we necessarily can't explore how we sort of finalize it. I don't know. I haven't seen anything specifically saying that the current process is getting completely thrown out. And because of that, and because of our contract with the superintendent, I believe that we need to, at a minimum, vote on this timeline, and perhaps time
I think we need to
allowing, we can maybe bring up the topic again. I will definitely look into see if Desi has sent out any kind of information about it. I know that the MASC did at one point, so I got that info, but it was all preliminary kind of review of the process.
we still have to do this.
Yeah, so we've got a motion on the table to support the proposed timeline. Any other kind of conversation on that? Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. Thanks, everybody. Okay, update on lead and water. I don't want to take a lot of time with this. Superintendent, do you want to give us a little update on this item?
Sure. In your packet, you have a case study from the last time Greenfield did a comprehensive lead and water testing. It was done so well with the work of our facilities director, Alan Schmidt, who's here, in coordination with the DPW. and outside testing agencies that they wrote a case study about how we handled it and lessons learned from that. You have a copy of that here. The update is about lead in water testing, not about lead in water in particular. We have always followed the DPW testing and the required testing process. We work closely with DPW on that. There have been a number of recommendations from Board of Health and a few other community members, and there's been some pending legislation with possible funds to do some additional testing. We have talked about this in the Health and Safety Subcommittee and with some community input. And the recommendation at this point is to do a third-party testing of our fixtures where they tested positive for lead in the past. This is not because of any particular concern. This is not because of any finding in Greenfield. It's just because it's good to know the quality of the water and to stay in front of this. This is in consultation with Marla Warner at the DPW, our folks, central maintenance folks. We've talked about this over the last several months, and the conclusion was that it would be helpful to just have a third-party testing just to see where things are at and then engage in any remediation that may be necessary. It also will probably help if funds are available later from Governor Baker. It could possibly put us in a good position because it would show that we are exceeding what's required of us and taking a real interest in being out in the front on this issue. So my recommendation, Alan Schmidt's here, he got a quote from ATC, who's done our testing before, and they provided a proposal for us. It's not especially cheap. It's $17,000 to retest all of the faucets in the Greenfield Public Schools that had a hit before. It's about 250 water fixtures, does a first draw and a second draw, and gets that data collected, entered, and submitted to the state. It's a comprehensive process. Again, we're not expecting anything really new to come out of it, but it is a helpful measure, and that was something that we talked about in health and safety, so we'll bring it forward to the full committee.
Member Herron, did you want to talk about health and safety conversation?
Yeah, so Superintendent Harper said all the reasons that Cam and I felt strongly about recommending this. It does put us in a good position if the legislation does pass. It looks like it might. If we do have a community member who does have a presentation, if we were feeling unsure, he could give us that presentation. But I don't think, I've seen the presentation, I didn't think it was necessary for all of us to see it. It's pretty straightforward. There's a point when you're like, well, no lead is good lead, and we want to make sure we're giving our students every safety possible, and we just need to know. The more knowledge we have, the more we can do with that knowledge.
Okay, so we're looking for a vote of support for additional testing, right? For a new
independent third-party
testing, and it doesn't necessarily need to be an endorsement of the company that you.
That's correct, but that's the quote we have available to us today.
Okay.
Can I ask, what did we come up with at the subcommittee level? We were okay with getting the price.
Well, no, she had a price for us at that meeting.
We heard that price.
Yeah, actually, she said 18, so 18. That's a little less.
And
we said we thought that the testing was important.
well, there's no doubt that it's important. I don't know if it's $18,000 important, especially given what our superintendent just said, that we're not expecting to find different. This isn't going to show us a whole lot more.
But the
we have information based on the tests that we've conducted. Rather see the $18,000 be spent towards alleviating what we know and maybe retest later on. I don't know. I didn't hear 18,000 before, but I don't always do it.
Okay, I see Member Hollins, and then I see Marin.
I just want to make sure, starting the school year, that we have all the materials we need for school and for the students, and that we have updated library materials for the new programs that we're teaching. And I don't know where the 18,000 is going to come from. Why don't we do something with the city? Or I just don't want more money on something that doesn't help students learn to read right at this moment when we're just opening schools. I don't know where it is in the budget or if we've That's my concern.
Mayor Martin.
Yeah, just, the city also tested and came up with a number of, what would they be called, outlets. So they were the fountains or bathroom labs, and did a whole replacement during that time, 16, 17.
Which is outlined in our.
So we did that,
Right?
and I think it's a good idea to be prepared if grants come out for replacing fixtures or to de-lead in some form, that might be in the regulation. So I guess I would support being prepared and having, if ASPEC, is it? ATC has already given us a price, and we use them all the time, and they're 98% accurate in that. Whatever they say, it'd be a couple dollars short of what they said. So it's
In terms of their price estimate.
Right.
Okay, cool. You good?
Yeah.
I saw you guys kind of at the same time.
I just have a quick clarifying question.
Okay.
I thought, the legislation coming forward would include grant money to remediate, not to test. So if we do this test, we're ready to get the grant money as soon as it's available, if it becomes available. If we don't do the test, then we have to wait. And by having a third party, we're sort of doing it independent of our town, trying to make a point or whatever. So it's sort of leaving it objective. That was what I was thinking.
Member Hans.
Would you support a motion to pass this to the central maintenance, and if they...
It's my understanding that there has been some conversation with central
I
maintenance.
just am uncomfortable at the beginning of the school year spending this much money when we don't know what the new principal needs or what textbooks do we have that need replacing.
So, you're welcome to put forward any motion you want. Alan, George, Marlo, Mark, Holly, maybe there was one other person, and myself, have talked about this issue. You know, there's sort of pending changes in the legislation, there's changing requirements, and then there's this potential. So is this essential to do right now, or is every single district being mandated to do it? No. It is a proactive measure, and if the committee doesn't want to see this level of testing, that's an option. However, I do think that there's a clear link between what they found around lead and water and student achievement, maybe not short-term, but long-term. So it is an important condition. And I think the results in Greenfield in the past have been encouraging. They've shown us that the water is good, but we know that old pipes, old fixtures tend to have more lead corrosion in them in general. And so this is where we got the information before we were able to take really swift action. And that just made us make better information available to parents and students. But as far as the DPW and central maintenance is concerned, we have all talked about it. And again, this is a recommendation that I'm making after consulting with them.
Okay, great. I heard Mayor Martin second something at one point. I'm not sure that a motion actually was called out though. Susan, am I?
So I would move that we support the funding of a
third-party
plumbing testing by third parties to let us know how safe the water is in the schools.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Member Karen. We did have just extensive deliberation on that. Is there anything else to be said?
Is that the $18,000?
17,000.
I did say 17. Did I say 17?
No,
you didn't say. You didn't
put
say
a
a
price
number.
on it.
You didn't say a number.
Let's have Susan read it back to us.
Okay. To support funding of third-party plumbing testing to let us know how safe the water is in the schools. Would you like to?
I would just offer a friendly amendment to take out the word plumbing and maybe replace it with water, right? Because they're actually testing the water, not,
Okay.
right?
You have to use the plumbing to get to the water, but yeah, you're
I
testing
don't
the
know.
water.
I just,
You're
yeah.
not strictly testing the plumbing.
You're not just strictly testing the plumbing. You're cool with that? Official
Yes.
for the record. Jesus.
Second, that's fine.
Okay.
So just maybe a quick clarification. The testing the water is because we've changed
Yep.
the lead in putting pipes together
Right.
over the past 30
Yep.
years. And it keeps getting smaller and smaller percentage of lead used, but there's still a modicum of lead in the water in other towns and counties.
Member Johnson.
Mayor Martin, could you say again why you're supporting this?
Because to have, historically, I find it very advantageous to have a plan before the money is put up. And so to have our documentation in order with the survey of the water and piping, when the grant application comes out, as it'd be for remediation, we'll be prepared to go to remediation. Other communities may be only in the phase 1 assessment.
And I 100% support the mayor's position on that and to get out ahead, superintendent's position to get out ahead. I also think that this will set us up for success in requesting the support of our state legislators. And we can be very clear that we are looking for some financial support from the state to address anything that needs to be addressed. I saw, yes.
Two quick thoughts. One is, when you do this study, can they also give an estimate on what it would take to fix whatever the issues are, the cost of that? Because if it's over a certain amount, it could go for a capital request. And the second thing is, where will this be paid from in their budget?
We're bringing it forward to the committee tonight. We could pay for it out of a school choice line or an operational line or an extraordinary maintenance line working, in any of the available appropriate budgeted areas. Just to clarify, we can absolutely get cost estimates for repairs. It wouldn't likely be the company that's doing the testing. It would likely be working with facilities and central maintenance as we did the last round.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, Member Johnson.
Move to call the question.
All right. First, we vote on calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so the motion on the table is to support third-party water testing in the Greenfield Public Schools. Almost the right words, but pretty close. All right,
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who's been involved with helping to figure out the details of that. We are now at 6:27. Yeah, sure. So we're at the budget update information and discussion from FY19 and FY20. So obviously this is an incredibly important topic. Something that we need to discuss. We do have 2 items in executive session that need to be touched on. So we've got, 5 of us right now. We can lose up to 1 more member before we adjourn, so we can keep a quorum. I think that we're gonna need 45 minutes at a minimum in executive session. So it will be helpful to me to have a sort of hard deadline for people so that we can actually work on this conversation. The budget information, and I believe we can really go on for a pretty long time talking about our budget. So I just want to recognize that I think that the time that we have this evening is not adequate, and we will do what we can to ensure that we will have additional conversation either on September 9th, if not before. So what time do you guys have to leave? How late do you guys have?
I can stay as long as you meet.
And also for our administrators, do you have time boundaries, important time boundaries?
Are you going to be discussing the parking here?
So yes, and it's an executive session conversation. My guess is that you were partly here for that, right?
That was the real reason I was here.
Main reason, okay, cool.
And the letter, of course.
Okay, I was just checking in with everybody. I think we need at a minimum 45 minutes in executive session, and then I acknowledge that we don't really have enough time to talk about budget, and I was getting a feel for the room in terms of how late we can stay. Do you have any time restrictions?
I serve at your pleasure.
Right. Well, bring it on. So here's what, Alan. Here's what I think we should do. I think we should give We should go until 7 PM, that's half an hour, and then see where we're at with budget, and then we can kind of go from there. So let's move forward with the budget update information discussion for FY19 and FY20. This is a huge topic. I will yield to the superintendent, and then we'll check in at 7.
Okay, so in your packet, you have a memo from our business manager that addresses several financial matters. This begins with the FY20 budget discussion and goes into FY19. I'd like to just say in a general way that one of the challenges we're seeing with the FY20 budget is that there have been a large number of staffing changes. And each one of these personnel changes, even if we recruit a great person into a position that was budgeted and approved by the school committee, that means that there is a possible discrepancy between the position as it was budgeted last year and the new person as they come in. So hiring managers have been working hard to fill these positions and also to be mindful of the budgeted amounts, but the pool of available candidates is not always within that range. Or you're not necessarily always having a 30-year veteran who's retired filled with a first-year teacher coming in. Some of what we're seeing is just real-time sort of dynamic changes, and because of the time of year, we're really just in the midst of a kind of flurry of those types of changes. And unfortunately, some people do wait until late in the summer to give notice, and then we work hard to keep up with those. So preparing letters and the corresponding budget changes and so forth. I will ask Steve to comment on the budget materials that are in your packet.
Okay, so let's start with FY19. We ended the year positively at $37,000 balance. This was not a budget that I had been familiar with previously. It was put together by TMS. So there were some challenges in there in figuring out who goes where and what, and those challenges are carrying over to the FY20 budget due to the fact that there's a large number of people and changes and people moving on and people coming in. So FY19 is complete. You may wonder why that you did not receive a statement in the last school committee meeting. And that is a very good question. And the reason is because there was an issue with encumbrances. So when I did run the report, there was a $1.2 million negative balance in the statement, which if I had passed that out, it would have been people would have had heart attacks here.
Reading about it in the newspaper.
Yeah. So I kept it in and worked with Liz over at the city to go ahead and clear up that encumbrance, and then you get your statement that you have now, which really, all in all, it looks pretty good for an end of the year. We were in parameters for revolving account usage for last year, which was good, given the fact that a lot of the things in the TMS budget were still a little bit soft as far as the usage of the revolving accounts. So it was a difficult year last year in making sure that everything balanced. Yeah, what you should have is a cover letter dated 8/12/19 that has number 1, budget discussion.
Can I just interrupt for a moment?
Yeah.
So there is a year-to-date budget report that says July 2018. Is that a typo? That should be July 2019?
That should be July 2019, yes.
And then you have a 20 revised.
Yeah,
20.
that's the 20, yeah.
So on that first page, I got it on page number 8.
I'm sorry. I think I have the 18. FY20.
It's actually 2019.
That's what I'm saying,
This
nothing says.
It does in the
Oh, there you go, for
fourth column.
There we go.
Well, I guess it's numbered also. Thank you, Steve. It's number 1.
FY '20 should be the new format and the old format.
Look at this. So is there a number in the lower right-hand corner?
Yeah.
That's FY '20.
And so it says FY 18 year-to-date, and that's 19?
But that's what Steve
Yeah.
said.
And this,
So Susan, I think you're right, that we have two
I have two of the
FY
same thing.
20s that are the same.
Okay, that was, it may have been a
From
copying
8, 12,
problem
19.
there.
all right, that's okay. And then I just want to make sure I have what you're talking to.
Yep, you
So
should
the
have-
closeout budget for the FY 19 is here or not here yet?
FY '19 closeout, I have it right here. I'm seeing if.
Okay,
if
but we don't have it
If
here?
it made it into your package here.
What is this?
You have an FY '20 statement. You have an FY '20,
It helps.
I think I have 3 FY 20.
Yep, actually in the package, 2 of the same FY '20s got in there, and there was no FY '19.
All right.
So I'll get you your FY '19, but it did end with a $37,000 balance for FY '19.
And you're saying the revolving fund report is in here?
Mhm. Actually, the revolving fund report was with FY '19, so I'll get that to you too. But, yep, FY '20 was duplicated when it was all put together.
So did we do any pay forward with the FY '19 fund?
We did not do any pay forward with the FY '19 funds, given the low number that we ended with. I remember, if you remember during the budget discussions, because of the limited availability of funds in FY '19, it was talked about to go ask the city for special ed, whatever, it is, city fund stabilization, stabilization count. So my recommendation there is to watch the out-of-district placement account and then decide whether or not, when and how much to ask for. As you know, special ed, you wake up one day and it's great, you wake up the next day and 2 kids move in and you're not sure what's gonna happen. So that would be my recommendation.
In the last 60 days of the fiscal year 19, did we transfer funds from one account to another?
Yes, we made very many transfers during the last 60 days. That was to balance out some accounts, things like that. I do have a report for you, because I know you asked for that. But that report is in a munis format, which is almost undecipherable. So what we're working on now is to kind of put it in regular terms, so you'll be able to understand what the to-from situation in that report.
So I think our policy calls for intra-departmental transfers is done in-house. Inter-departmental is done through the council, through the school committee. So were inter-departmental transfers made that we don't know about yet?
Inter-department, like between
cost centers.
Between the school department and another department?
Between the
Centers and
high school and middle school.
Okay. Yes, so there were departmental, the journal entry transferred centered around one cost center. So, and then there were some transfers, for example, we received a police bill for about $14,000 very late. So we made a journal entry for those to pay another department within the town because of bills that rolled in later in the year.
That was in addition to the 30,000 for the...
That was the second payment for the 30,000.
Okay, but that was a known payment. So
That was a
would have
known
been in, that would have been in the truant officer line.
Yep. Exactly. It's just, the main issue with that is that it didn't roll in until end of July, beginning of August. So that made it a little more difficult, and that's why we had to do a journal entry for that.
So, but paid for out of the FY19 budget.
FY19 budget, that's correct. So when you look at FY '20, you'll see a number of negatives regarding salaries and salaries that have been encumbered. Like I said, this is a soft entry into the FY '20 budget. So we're working on clearing up those negative balances and making sure that we have the right people in the right places with the right encumbrances, so we're not chasing our tail like we did last year.
I want to clarify, I see you, for the group, we are in the practice for the past several years of approving some transfers through the warrant process. So if folks aren't aware of that, that has happened in the past, and that's consistent with our practice. However, I appreciate all of the questions about the transfers, and I want to be very clear that my expectation is that if there are big, major changes that are happening, or if there are major transfers that are happening, it absolutely needs to come to the school committee table, and preferably in a public setting so that we're able to actually talk about it. Sometimes transfers that occur, you know, I feel comfortable with some smaller transfers that are occurring through the warrant process. Again, I have a level of comfort with that because I've been doing it for the past couple of years. But again, any big transfers, my expectation is that we have a conversation about it. The other thing is that related to the prepayment of the special education tuition. So as part of the school committee conversation about budgeting for this coming year, that we would prepay special education tuition. I believe, I don't have the figure in front of me, $150,000. It has been the practice of the Greenfield Public Schools to make a prepayment of special education tuition, generally around $200,000, I believe. At least for the past 5 years or so, we've done that. And I want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly in that, so the special education prepayment didn't occur this year. That doesn't jeopardize us. It's a change in practice, and it's something that the school committee did not approve. The school committee actually approved the opposite. We, through our budget deliberation and vote, that's my understanding, that our plan moving forward was to do a prepayment. So I also want to be clear on what I think I heard related to modifying the request to utilize funding from the special education stabilization account that is governed by the council. So the school committee did request that through our budget deliberation, did request that the mayor put forward a request for funding to be available through the special education stabilization account. My understanding is that that request hasn't been brought forward yet. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate.
Okay, cool. So I just want to make sure everybody's like on the same page with that. And what I think I heard Steve just say just a couple minutes ago was that we should be reviewing and monitoring, and then potentially revise a request to the mayor for funding from the special education stabilization account. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay.
And with regard to the prepayment, there's not enough general funds to go ahead and make that prepayment, but if you choose to make a prepayment out of a special ed revolving account, there would be enough.
Okay.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
So the prepayment would have to have been done with the FY19 monies.
That's correct.
And
Right.
so that you would have the advantage in FY20. So any prepayment now is for FY21.
Right.
And that would be done in June of next year.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And then just one more clarification, I didn't make that recommendation to the city council for the $150,000 from the stabilization account, primarily because of the continuing balance of the school choice. So in preparation of, for that unforeseen student enrollment that might come in the future, which we have had many students come in and out over the past several years, the balance of that account has not been less than $2 million for the past 6 or 7 years. So if there is a need to pay forward or to tap into the stabilization account, at least through me, it would have to have a lower balance than the school choice and the special education account that you already have.
So to center back on the prepayment, there just are not enough funds to make a prepayment this year. So, it's kind of a rock and a hard place at that point.
Okay, I saw Member Hollins, thank you for your patience, if you wanna go for it.
I'm really concerned about our committee's lack of oversight of money. This isn't about the superintendent or the business manager. Member Karen made a very, strong statement that the budget subcommittee was talking about topics that had nothing to do with budget. I went through every single topic. Yes, let me finish. It was a very strong statement that the budget subcommittee was not functional and that we were talking about agenda items that weren't relevant. I went through every agenda item. There was nothing that wasn't relevant. There may be people on the committee that don't understand how A is related to B, but nothing was relevant. We haven't had the 2 meetings a month going over ending the year, what's happening with our revolving funds, whether the funds are depleted, any of that for months. We're still a committee, and this is 60% of the town's money. I can't think of any standing committee that's more important than budget and finance. So for the 2 people on this committee that are running for school committee, I don't know how you can vote against having a budget and finance subcommittee. You can tell that committee what you want them to do, but we don't have any information we should have. That's one. Chairman Nunez, you said that we don't have to discuss budget transfers. We do it through the warrant process. I just want to disagree with you. There's a difference between informed consent and uninformed consent. If I go in and I sign the warrant, if there's something in there that's transferring money and there isn't a memo on the top that says, included in this warrant is $100,000 being transferred from here to there, that's not informed consent. There's people that are signing these online. They're not looking up. I go in and I ask, was this FY19, was this FY20, but there's no memo attached. So when you're signing that warrant, that is not informed consent about our policy or I think the statute about making transfers as a committee, knowing what's going on with the money. And I just think this is, I don't know what, just for myself, as a committee, we don't know what revolving funds were depleted. We maybe could have had another recommendation to the city about money. I don't know, we're supposed to be responsible for the 60% of the city's budget that's coming to the school district and know how it's being spent. We deliberate and we agree, we want more money for the health program, we want more money for the superintendent, but we're not supposed to go 3 and 4 months without knowing about how the budget's being closed out, what funds are being depleted. It's been talked to us that it's irrelevant, the budget subcommittee doesn't know what it's doing. The budget subcommittee really knew what it was doing. We found important issues.
So I think we're going off topic.
I don't think so, because we don't have current information, and this committee has voted to not have a budget, a standing budget committee. For the history of the school, every school district in the state has a standing budget committee. And it used to meet twice a month, and it would be going over these things so it could have a quick presentation. And the decision was that we were going to meet regularly as a committee. Well, that didn't work, and we need to get back to having a standing budget committee. And people that want to be on it, and come to the meetings, but we have to know what's going on with the budget, and we don't. And that's not right. That's not responsible. And my last comment is, I said we should have money for the new health curriculum, library materials, and because we didn't have a librarian, I was corrected by 2 people. I just went through this, I don't see any librarian K-8. So please tell me where there's a librarian.
You said that we did not have a library in our elementary schools and middle school. You said library.
Well, I meant librarian, because I was talking about setting aside money to make sure we had library books. And how are we going to do that, because we don't have a K-8 librarian to my knowledge. So I wanted to say that. You wanted to end at 7, we're going to end on 7. I think we're really remiss in budget review, and I think I'd like to make a motion to reinstate a standing committee on budget and finance.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mayor Martin. Deliberation.
I I'm confused because I don't think I ever said that you were irrelevant as a subcommittee.
No,
Or
dysfunctional.
dysfunctional, that word did not leave my mouth.
You said that we were talking about topics.
I know, I also did not say that. That was not me. I would love to see it like a transcript, because I don't think that that's what I meant. What I meant was, if I did say that, I don't remember every word that I said, because I mean, who does? That sometimes the agenda topic was not listed on the agenda, and that sometimes you talked about it that wasn't on the agenda, but I didn't like bring forward any specific case, that wasn't me. And that sometimes you're talking about things that weren't referred to you from the full committee, and the reason I brought that up was because in my process of working on policy, I was learning that you're not supposed to be discussing things on an agenda if it hasn't been referred specifically. And we can go into the conversation you tried to have with me via email, but all of the things on our agenda were referred to us by full committee.
The committee referred the FY19 budget, the FY20 budget,
Yes.
and the FY21 budget, and everything on those
I
agendas
also
was
don't
about
feel
that.
like I learned anything about the budget when you guys made reports.
Okay, but you also supported eliminating a standing committee, and now we have no information.
For a period of time, so we
Well,
would like work.
Like what?
So
Well,
now
I'm
we
making
all
a
right,
motion, we
okay.
get back.
Right, so now we
have-
can talk about it again.
We have a motion on the table to reinstate a budget subcommittee. Member Karen has the floor. Did you want to speak to the motion any further?
I am okay with making a new budget subcommittee if we really can't make it work as a full committee. But we're having a hard time getting our subcommittees to show up for meetings as it is. And I'm finding that very frustrating. So if that's gonna eliminate,
We had our committee met and kept minutes.
don't show up for the other ones.
Yes, superintendent.
So I've just heard several times they say that we don't have current information, we don't have any information we're supposed to have, we don't know what revolving funds. So the requests that this committee makes are fulfilled by the business manager and myself. If there's a report that the full committee is looking for, we can bring it forward. You don't need any particular structure to do that besides a vote of the committee. If there's any information, it's our obligation to bring forward information to the committee for financial oversight. And if there is something that you feel you need in any format, please let us know so that we can provide it.
Member Johnson.
My understanding was when we voted to disband the budget subcommittee to take on the work as a full committee was that we would be scheduling extra meetings and adding that to our work as a full committee. So can you speak to that and where we are in that process?
Yes, absolutely. So an example is that we didn't have a quorum last Wednesday. We had time there to have an extended conversation about the budget. We also had held today, August 19th, as an extension for any spillover conversation. The intention for today's meeting was to be specifically either about specifically budget, if we needed the spillover, or if need be, also again to look at some executive session topics. So the clarification beyond that is, at this point, we've held September 9th, we have a regular September meeting, we've held the third Mondays of the month. For special meetings to be approximately 5 to 7 p.m. on the third Mondays of the month.
All right, so hearing that, I think I'm going to vote against the motion on the table because it seems like with summer schedules, we actually haven't had a chance to implement the decision that this body made about how we were going to organize the work of the budget. And I'd like to see that play out a little bit before we go back and revert to recreate the structure that we just changed.
I see Mayor Martin, and then I have some things to say.
First, what we have on the agenda tonight for budget discussion is actually less than what we usually have on the agenda we had on the agenda for the Budget Ways and Means Committee, or the Budget Committee, Subcommittee.
How so? It's the most broad topic ever.
So we would often have other items, and we can check all the other agendas. So all the agendas of the Budget Subcommittee were at least this and more. So to say that the agendas are not identifying. So number two, the idea that the whole committee controls, or the chair, which controls the whole committee, then determines what subcommittees talk about, I think is a bit of a muzzle. So the subcommittees have their responsibilities and what they do, and the budget subcommittee certainly has a huge responsibility to review the budgets existing, coming next, and the current. So, as well as the policies, financial policies, and all the other accounts involved in the school department. So I'm saying that if you're going to take away the subcommittee and you're going to only have it spoken, the finances are going to be spoken at the full committee, whether it's on a Monday or Wednesday, a regular or a special, then this type of information isn't helpful. So we get this on the Wednesday. If we're going to meet the following third Monday, then we need accurate information given to us and a chance to address all the issues. So we have limited communication by email at the request of several people, and we don't have the information to discuss the budget. And superintendent does tries to respond to all the requests. I remember 5 months ago, 6 months ago, we had a discussion of what reports we want to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we already been through this. What do we want to see? So let's just get what we decided to see so that we can, in ample time, to discuss it at a full committee. So I guess my frustration is that knowing the financial policies and the information we get for the budget, we need to have those to be, compatible. And certainly not the warrant is not any way to approve transfers interdepartmentally, which means from one cost center to another. You've got to know we're going to take $300,000 from this school and put it in this school. So what and why and where was it, and so on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Member Hollins.
I just wanted to ask for clarification. When did we disband when was the vote to disband the budget and finance subcommittees? Was it April?
I believe it was June.
When did you?
I was here, so it was definitely not for me.
Which was probably
Was it
the
June or
most
July?
worst
No,
time to
it
do it.
might have been
Closing out the
No,
year
it was
in July.
I thought it was earlier.
Or closing out the year and starting the year.
Is that do you have an additional comment?
No, I just wanted to clarify I just feel like we're not doing our duty to do budget oversight.
So a couple of things. First of all, the practice of approving transfers has been a practice of the Greenfield School Committee since prior to my being on the school committee. My expectation is that our membership is reviewing our warrants closely. So I know that occasionally I have questions and I will ask those questions about the warrants. I know that some of you also do too. And then also related to, again, I think that we're in agreement about transfers. If they need to come to the committee table, it needs to be very clear, and I would appreciate that. About getting the information in a timely fashion, I agree with you. I also, feel a little bit like I'm really definitely trying not to be sounding too defensive at this point because I don't really think that that's productive. But I'm also incredibly frustrated with where we are right now simply because I also would like to have information presented to the committee and prepared for us to be able to have a conversation about what's here. Some of this I have limited control over. As well, any requests that I've gotten from people, those have been few. One came from the mayor with specific information requesting that was forwarded on to everybody. It was, it's all been there. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. And I'm sort of, the reality is that I think that I still stand by the fact that the full committee has an interest in this conversation. I like the idea of us continuing forward as a full committee to deliberate. All we actually need is 4 members that are willing to get together and have a conversation. With that in mind, I do think that the summer scheduling has been very difficult. We now have effectively reserved an additional day to meet twice a month now, which is a little funny to me because it's been suggested in the past, and I've resisted that. With that all in mind, I still think that this is something that we should be, as a full body, taking a close look at. I also have the expectation that any agreement that we have made about reports, that we continue to receive those reports. As the mayor mentioned, we've had extensive conversation about what reports we want to see, and my understanding is that we haven't taken any votes to, as a full body, to stop receiving those reports. And it sounds like it was just a little bit of a mistake to not have the revolving fund accounts in our packet today. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah,
Okay.
Just to call the question.
Okay. We'll vote on calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Aye. 2 opposed, 3 call the question. Motion passes to call the question. So the motion on the table is to reinstate a budget subcommittee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Holmes.
I have learned that around 1975, Greenfield School Committee did handle budget as a full committee. Oh, no, where?
Yeah, we're calling the question.
You called the question, so there's no more deliberation.
Oh,
Thank you, Glenn. So the motion is to reinstate the budget subcommittee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
No.
I'm a no. Anyone abstain? 1 abstention. So 3 noes, 1 yes, 1 abstention. So we will move forward. It is 7:03 p.m. I want us to, at least for a moment, duck into executive session. Alan is waiting very patiently to talk to us about an important matter that I think needs to be addressed before we adjourn tonight. Before we do that, is there a possibility for us to meet prior to September 9th? Is that something that we can do? Because I would be very happy to have a school committee meeting to specifically look at budget prior to September 9th, if it's even a possibility. This is also the busiest time of year for everybody.
Point of order.
Yes, not only members of Congress.
No, I think the chair has the right to bring that up, obviously, but we didn't finish one item on the agenda. Trade on the DESI audit.
Can we talk about scheduling for just 1 minute and see? Is there interest? Is there a possibility? I'm sensing some.
Now in September 9th. If you pick a date and I can make it,
This one?
I just.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will take a look at the schedule. I know that the superintendent and I reviewed several dates, and this was one of them. So, okay, so I will do that within the next 48 hours and get back to you guys and see if that's even a possibility. If it's not, we're looking at September 9th.
First week of September, I could make any day but Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mayor Martin, you were asking about the last agenda item.
Yeah, I thought we skipped it, and we're going into executive session.
So yeah, I am suggesting that we table and move into executive session. I move to table number 6, which actually shouldn't even be here. Update on the DESI audit. There may be some inconsistency with agenda, actually. I moved to table number 6, because I requested that it get moved to the person report and then get taken off the agenda, so I actually don't know. I can even easily talk about it. I'm moving to table number 6, update on DESI audit. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by member Johnson. Can we have the audit? There is no physical audit that I'm aware of. At this time, there is no report.
Oh, the DESI audit.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought you meant the financial.
Yes. Mayor.
So I understand this audit is to address the net school spending for the city of Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
The document I have sent to you previously was cut off by, I guess, my computer or somehow in transmission. But basically, the FY19 and FY20 net school spending calculations are complete, and Greenfield is $5.3 million over net school spending. We had gone from roughly 4 and change to 5 and change. So that's available on the website of DESE, Department of Employment and Secondary Education. I think Steve probably been there before.
Yeah, I think did I send you a copy?
You did the 19.
Oh, I said the 19,
And
okay.
20, it moved us up another $700,000 or $800,000. So
So are you speaking to the motion to table?
that's,
There's a motion to table, item number 6.
oh.
And I did just look at the calendar, and it looks like we're okay in terms of posting. But there's a motion to table. Did you want to speak to the motion to table?
Sure, I'll take one.
Classic. Okay, anyone want to speak to the motion to table?
This is
Okay,
tabling number 6,
This would be
right?
tabling number 6.
My only question is, did we finish discussion of number 5?
No, I don't think that we have. So we're on a motion to table for number 6. Let's vote on that, okay? And the mayor, I think, passed out a single copy, physical copy related to that topic, right? Just as you came in. There's also information included. Yeah, it's printed out. The chair. Okay, so everybody, we are voting on a motion to table item number 6. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of tabling number 6? Aye. Bill, yes, okay, so that's unanimous, so we are officially tabling item number 6. Member Hollins brought up a question about whether or not we had completed deliberation on number 5. And so what happened was we got to be about 7 p.m. and I suggested that we move into executive session in order to address important topics that need to be dealt with in executive session, especially because one of our administrators is here waiting patiently to give us the information that we need. So that's what happened. Then we started talking about 6.
Could we get the revolving fund report and the FY19 report so we could at least look at it?
Okay, so, and let's just be very clear, you're asking for a current revolving funds report
Yeah, I think,
for 20?
well, the revolving fund report that we voted said, you know, we spent the whole meeting on this. What money came in this year, what money was from that year. If we could just get a report that's separated so we would know what money are we starting with from last year.
So an updated current revolving
Fund
funds
report,
report.
which funds were depleted or what the status is, that would be helpful.
Okay, and then,
19 that was supposed.
and then the 19 that was supposed to be done, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Member Hollins, do you mind if I turn that into a motion to receive a current revolving funds report and the FY19 closeout report? Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'll second that. And any further deliberation? My further deliberation would just be to have it as soon as possible to the group. I think that it is ready.
Yeah, it just got mixed up with
Yeah, that's
the
okay.
copy.
It'd be great to have
Yeah.
that.
So all those in favor of receiving those 2 reports?
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I think that we should entertain, what's up?
I think there's still some other items on Steve's report. One is the Cosmetics contract.
I think this
So this is the Cosmetics should be an executive session item.
Oh.
Is there anything else still that you wanted to?
No.
Okay.
It would be great if it's no problem to understand how it worked out getting all the new vans, and it was a very exciting initiative.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be long, 2 sentences.
Oh, you mean like right now? You're asking? Oh, just in general?
Just sometime, because it was a big expense and a big initiative, it was creative and entrepreneurial.
He's been
Great, awesome. So we're just checking in. Just checking in. A little wide-eyed. Everybody's wide-eyed. to ahead. Again, I just want to acknowledge that there is considerable more conversation that we need to have about the FY20 budget, and just making sure that everybody's informed about what's happening with our budget and our finances. I just want to clearly state that. And then now, if it's okay with the group, we will enter into executive session. I move to enter into executive session for the purpose of MGL C30A 22, 1, 3, and 10. This is to discuss, actually I don't think we need one, but I'll read it off anyway, it's on our agenda. To discuss reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. That would be in regards to Unit C. And then number 10, to discuss trade secrets or confidential, competitively sensitive, or other proprietary information. This is in respect to parking lot negotiation and transportation contracts.
Can I make a clarifying?
Sure, please.
I hope this isn't confusing, but I understand that exception number one to the open meeting law was based on a previous version of this and is not necessary.
It is not necessary
for tonight.
Thank
So
you.
I just want to make that clear.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, it is not necessary. So we're looking at 3 and 10. Collective bargaining, trade secrets. That's a motion. Second by member Karen. Yes, please.
Susan Hollins.
Yes.
Glenn Johnson.
Yes.
Adrian Nunez.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
And I say yes.
Okay, great. So we are now in executive session. It's 7:14 p.m. Hi everyone, we are back in public session. It is 8:30 p.m. according to my clock. We have one motion and vote in public session. Susan Farber, if you could read the motion to us.
Okay, the motion is to approve the contract for school transportation services with Kosmeskis for the term of July 1st, 2019 until June 30th, 2024, pending inclusion of, quote, contractor will comply with all school committee policies relevant to student transportation. Contractor shall provide sidearm cameras at a one-time cost not to exceed $15,000. And remove he, him, his section from paragraph 1.
And that is moved by me and seconded by member Karen. Is there any public deliberation on that? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any deliberation? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. It is 8:31 p.m.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it, close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
One, two.
Yeah!